Hi everyone, Dorian here, and for this quick tutorial, I wanted to show you a way to make the side tables be a little more realistic scale. This is a trick I picked up from some Brando on Twitch. I will drop his link in the description. I highly recommend you checking out his channel. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So, main reason I wanted to show you this is because the side tables as they come in the game, to me personally, they are insanely big. This is a tabula rasa end table. It's a base game table, but you'll see it's almost the same size as the chair, which to me is a bit unrealistic. And unfortunately, you can size down the table like you would any other object using the left curly bracket key. But because the table has places on top where objects can snap into, they're going to snap into the original height, which means if you try to put a lamp down, it's going to snap in as if the table were the original height, which means you're going to have a bunch of floating objects. So there is a way around this. The preferred way I'm going to show you requires you to have the Dream Home Decorator pack, but I will show you that you can use this. You can do this in base game as well. You're just not going to get, personally, I don't think you're going to get quite as good a result, but let's go ahead and get started. Okay, now for first things first, we want to make sure you have the Move Objects cheat on. In order to do that, you'll just press Control Shift and C on your keyboard, and the first thing you want to type is testing cheats space on. Hit enter, and you should see that cheats are enabled. From here, just type bb.move objects space on, and you should see the move objects cheat is on. Other thing I would recommend is also turning on debug. You don't need it for this cheat, but debug does, if you wanted to, debug does have a little more variety of items. So if you wanted to put some additional things on top of the table, like maybe some like little knick-knacky items, pulling it from debug is a good way to go. So in order to do that, just do bb.show hidden objects and hit enter. Now you won't see anything in the chat console that says debug is enabled. However, if you do a search, and you should see debug pop up from here. So I will say debug is kind of a pain to kind of sift through just because it's a lot of items. They're not necessarily labeled very well. If you're on PC, I would highly recommend you download Twisted Mexi's Better Build By mod. It makes it a lot easier to go through debug items. It labels everything, and overall it's a much cleaner experience. But anyway, we have all of our cheats enabled. So we're going to head close the chat console by pressing Control Shift and C again. And now we can go ahead and get started. So the first thing we want to do, we have our chair, we have our table. First thing we want to do is going to size down the table to the size that we want. You can do this by using the left curly bracket. I would recommend just doing it once because that could give you about the height to the correct scale that you need. So once that's done, you can then click the table and I'm holding the Alt key. You can kind of place it where you're going to want it to end up being. You can have it snap to the grid. However, I think it looks a little more realistic if you have it a little bit closer to the table. So holding the Alt key will allow you to take advantage of move objects and you can kind of place it wherever. Now, as I mentioned, unfortunately, you can't just place items on top of it and be done with it. Well, you can, but they're going to float. Using this example, we use this just basic base game lamp. Try to put that on. It's going to snap to the original height of the table, which means that since we size down the table, it's going to float. Now to get around this, you'll want to go back into your surfaces, go back into your end tables, and you'll want to look for the crumb catcher end table from Dream Home Decorator. It's this one right here. It's kind of the one that has like the lips off to the side. But the reason we're going to use this one is that this one at its regular height is about the size. It's about the same height as most of the other side tables once they've been reduced in size by 1. You can kind of see here, staying over top of each other, that the tabletops kind of match. There's a little teeny bit of a height discrepancy. However, you're not really going to notice that once you're in the game. But anyway, this is what we're going to use as kind of like the source for where we're going to snap our objects. And then we're going to use move objects to place the objects where we want the new end table to be. Okay, another thing I want to call out is that you want to make sure the crumb catch, you want to make sure it's on the same level as your table, but not close enough that you're going to have potentially objects still snapping to it. You also want to make sure that where your objects are going to end up, you want to make sure like any other tables, any shelves or any cabinets, anything that has a top that smaller items can snap to, you want to make sure those are out of the way because you don't want to be placing objects and have them snap to a cabinet or a shelf instead. Okay, now that that's done, we want to move this table out of the way. That way you can leave the chair there because nothing is going to snap to the chair. However, if you want to, and plus this leaving the chair there will also kind of give you an idea of where you want your objects to go. Because this next step is going to take a little teeny bit of imagination. So we're going to go back to lighting and we're going to pull out this lamp again and we're going to place it on this table. So now we have it there. We're going to click on it. And then while holding the Alt key, we're going to drag it and we're going to approximate where it's going to end up once this table is placed underneath of it. You see, I just kind of moved it over there. You see, the reason why you don't want these other tables so close to it is because they will just snap back in there. We're going to put it back to where it was, and then we're going to hit Alt. And like I said, takes a little bit of guesswork. You may have to play around with it a few times, but I'm going to guess that the lamp is probably going to end up going there. So now that the lamp is placed, you'll see the lamp right now is floating. However, once we move this table back in, it should look like the lamp is sitting right on top of the table. Technically, it is floating, but as far as appearances go, it's sitting on top of the table. You're good to go. This does give you also give you a little more flexibility if you want to place additional objects. So for example, let's move this lamp maybe a little bit over to the left and let us place, I have a set of books right here, these mega books. And maybe we're going to snap them to our crumb catcher table first. Then we're going to alt place them in front of this lamp. Now, once we move the table back in, you kind of see you have both objects sitting there. Pretty cool, right? So yeah, this gives you a little bit more flexibility. Also gives you an idea. It also gives you the ability to place objects on a table without being restricted to however many items can snap to it. So if we wanted to also place like a plant or something, let's go to decorations, the plants, and let's just do this little basic mega flower pot right here. We're going to put it on the crumb catcher table. We're going to move our tabula rasa table out of the way. And then we're just going to put this like right there. We'll put our tabula rasa table back and we're fairly close. Like I said, sometimes it's a little bit of trial and error. So what we're going to do here is we're actually going to move these books a little bit over to the right and then move our flower pot a little bit over to the left. And now everything should look like it's sitting on the table. No issues there. This flower pot's a little big, so I wouldn't maybe don't use this one, but you kind of gives you an idea of what we're going for. All right, awesome. Now I understand not everyone's going to have Dream Home Decorator. It really does have the best tables for this trick to make it work. However, you can get similar results using one of the base game tables. In this case, I would use the outdoor end table. You'll see there are some height differences. The outdoor end table does sit a little bit lower, and you can kind of see where if we try to match it up to this size down tabula rasa, it does sit a little bit lower. So once you put the tabula rasa table in place, you may notice some objects look like they're kind of like stuck in the table. If you have larger objects, it may not be as big a deal, but here, I'll go ahead and show you real quick. So we'll put our lamp down, doing the same idea we did before, where we're using the outdoor end table as the height basis instead of the crumb catcher. We're going to alt click drag it into place. And then once we put the table down, you see we're kind of missing our base now. So there are some of it you might just have to play around with objects that maybe have a bigger base so that if they do disappear into the table, it's not as big a deal. Like this fanciful dome lamp from Cats and Dogs, for example. Get rid of this one. Put that here. You'll notice you do lose some of the base, but enough of it's there that you can still kind of make it work. Smaller objects, however, it may not work as well. Like if we do this same trick with the books, we try to drag the books into place, and then the top book looks fine, but the bottom book is definitely like kind of stuck in the table. So you'll have to play around with it a bit. Like I said, I do think the crumb catcher table from Dream Home Decorator is the best one to pull this off. But for larger objects or objects where you don't necessarily care if it's clipping into the table a little bit, you can use the outdoor end table from base game in a pinch. All right, and there you have it, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. This is a trick I use all the time. It is so much easier than trying to manually change the height for objects to try and match them, try to get them to fit into the new table size. And it makes for what I would consider to be a much more realistic looking experience because the tables are at a much more realistic scale. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. I have a few other tricks up my sleeve when it comes to building that I will be posting videos about soon. If there's anything in particular you'd like to see, please feel free to leave a comment. And that is it. Thank you, everyone. And I hope you have a fantastic day. Bye.